Hey guys, it's your favorite slightly above average fitness level teenager who thinks he's qualified to make fitness videos guy here, Tom. And today I'm just going to be running you guys through like my basic guide to fitness. It's really nothing complicated. I'm just going to keep this like as simple and bullshit free as I can really for you guys. It's just what you do inside the gym, so your training, what you do outside the gym, your recovery, and how you fuel your body, your food, what you eat. I hope you're not drinking like gas. That's not even funny. Anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and yeah, I'll get straight into it. The first thing I'm gonna get absolutely clear is that training is the most important, and in saying that, the most important thing is how hard you train in the gym, your intensity. As long as you're hitting each muscle group and doing so with intensity, you'll grow no matter how messed up everything else is. So, what does intensity actually look like? Well, to stimulate muscle growth, you've got to do something called training to failure. This is where you take yourself through an exercise with good form, it might break down a little bit, until you're completely unable to perform another rep, even if there was a gun pointed at your head, unable to do it. Now, I'm not saying that if you picked up the heaviest weight possible and did one rep of it every day and called it a day, you would build muscle, because you simply wouldn't. So, the other thing you've got to consider while training to failure is the rep range you train in. So there's 100 different fancy ones. Everyone will tell you it's really quite simple. Anything between 8 and 25 reps is going to optimally build muscle. Now, if you're aiming to build strength, such as on things like a deadlift, a squat, and a bench press maybe, you might train in the 2 to 7 rep range, but I'm making this video for the sake of building muscle. I won't talk about it as much. So, 3 sets of bicep curls within the 12 to 15 rep range might look like as follows. Your first set, 15 reps, don't hit failure. Second set, 14 reps, you fail. Third set, 11 reps, you fail. That's your set to failure. Pretty simple. Now, you probably have noticed that I'm saying 12 to 15 reps, which is a rep range. Rep ranges are important because they allow you to track something called progressive overload. As you might have guessed, it allows you to progressively overload your muscles. This is really important because when you push your body to failure, when you train harder than your body is capable of doing, it's going to adapt by then making your body bigger and stronger. Now, when you become bigger and stronger, a weight that you previously may have not been able to do, that was a big struggle for your body, is now easily doable. You can do it with a few reps in reserve. You could curl it 20 times instead of 15. Now, if you're curling this weight for 15 and not struggling, you're no longer challenging your body. If you're not challenging your body, there's no need for it to grow because it's able to do this thing. This is why it's important to continually make sure you're always going to failure. So, this is what you might want to do, and this is how you might progressively overload something. The first week, you do 10 kilos for 15 reps, not failure, 14 reps failure, 11 reps failure. The second week, you do 10 kilos again. This time you do 15 reps, not failure, 15 reps, not failure, 15 reps, not failure. You could have done a few more. Now, you're not going to do the same thing again because your body's become strong enough to do it without a challenge. Or it's hard, but you can do it. Now, the third week, you're going to up the weight to 12.5 kilos. You're going to do 14 reps, fails. 12 reps, fails. 11 reps, fails. And then repeat this cycle until you do 15, 15, 15. Up the weight again to, 15 kilos, keep going. Now, the easy way to tell if you need more or less weight when a rep range like this is if you can do more reps than the upper limit, for example, 15, then you need to increase, on the last set, then you need to increase the weight. So if you can do more than 15 reps in your third set, you need to increase the weight for this example. And if you can't do the lower limit of reps, so 12 for this example, with the first set, you need to drop the weight. So with your first set, if you can't do 12 reps, you need to go lighter. Now you're all smart, you're ready to hit the gym, ready to get really jacked. Crush might like you, but you're a little baby horse, you can't walk. So in the next 7 minutes, you're going to be able to walk. I think that's how long it takes a horse to walk, but anyway, I digress. The next step is making sure you recover properly, so let me explain. When you work out a muscle, you produce a stimulus to the body that tells the muscle to grow, right? The body acts on this stimulus outside of when you're in the gym. It's not growing when you're doing your curls. It's growing when you're sitting at home crying that your crush won't snap you back, and especially when you're sleeping. So this is why it's extremely important to give yourself enough time to recover. Keeping in mind that the body is really adaptable, it can handle a lot more than you think. You don't need a week of recovery for one workout. And that recovering doesn't mean doing completely nothing. For example, if you hit chest on Monday and you're hitting legs on the Tuesday your chest is going to be recovering. So I did briefly mention sleep. I'm going to avoid going full nerd mode on you. There's a lot of really important benefits from sleeping well for your health, for everything else, but in relation to fitness, sleeping properly, it's where your test is made. It'll boost your testosterone a lot. That's really important. And making sure that you sleep before 12, there's a lot of evidence sleeping before 12, so say 10:30 is really, really important for sleep quality. Sleeping long enough, around 8 hours, and sleeping in 1.5 hour cycles. What I mean by that is waking up 7.5 hours after you sleep, 9 hours after you sleep. That's really important because that's when you're going to be in your light sleep state, not like your dreams, because we all know how bad it is when you wake up. You've actually been really jacked. It's great. You wake up, suddenly you realize, it was just a dream. You're sitting in bed. It's time to go to school. No one loves you. And yeah, it's really sad. So make sure you sleep in 1.5 hour cycles. So now you know how hard to train. More importantly, how hard to sleep and sit at home and do nothing. The next thing to do is actually get in the gym and train, but you've got no clue what to do. Well, luckily for you, I'll give you 3 different splits. So I'm not telling you the exercises reps, I'm just telling you 3 different splits I would recommend you look into. If you do want me to make videos on each, I just comment. So the first I would recommend is an antagonist split if you've got a fair bit of time. This will be 3 days on, 1 day off. What this would look like is Monday, or the first day, chest and back. Second day, arms and shoulders. Third day, legs. Now, this is better than a push-pull leg split, in my opinion, because you're putting as much priority on your arms and shoulders as you are on the chest and back and legs. And most guys, when you say, oh, like, how big are you? Give me a flex. You flex your bicep. You don't flex something else. Your arms matter. So putting that emphasis is important. It added 2 inches onto mine. I was trained, quite a fit individual. Arms were lacking. They were only 14 inches, 16 within a month and a half hopping on an antagonist split. So the next one, if you don't have as much time, is a 4 times a week upper lower. When you rest is, you got to spend time doing your homework, doing your work, seeing your wife, whatever it might be. That's when I'd recommend you rest. It's pretty self-explanatory. One day you hit upper, so your upper body, arms, chest, back, etc. Next time you hit legs, then you hit upper body again, then you hit legs again. The final one, which if you've really got no time, is a full body 3 times a week. Now, you're probably going to focus on compound exercises, bench press, squat, deadlift, those types of things, and hit your whole body, obviously, and yeah, just fit it in when you can. I would recommend doing an antagonist split or an upper-lower split to start. So just to cement how to train, I'm going to use a bit of an analogy with sandpaper. So say you've got sandpaper in your hand. If you rub fiercely against your hand over and over and over and over, eventually you're going to break the skin, your hand bleeds. Right? Give it a couple days and eventually your hand heals over. Now the skin's tougher. It's more calloused, right? You might have to do it a few times, but eventually it's going to become more calloused. It's going to become rougher. This is you training to failure, breaking the skin and recovering properly, giving it time to heal, turns into a callus, you grow bigger muscle. Alternatively, you rub it once, doesn't break the skin, there's nothing for it to change, don't get stronger. That's not training hard enough. Or you rub it every single day, all the time, never giving it time to recover, and it's just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and it gets worse, and you get a staph infection, you die. So you're not going to die from training too much, but that's if you don't give it time to recover. So you have to train hard enough and recover hard. Great. So now you're killing yourself in the gym. You're ticking off the most important box. So now you're a figurative car. You're driving down the road, and you have no fuel. So without further ado, I'm gonna fuel you up. I'm gonna teach you how to eat. So losing or gaining weight is all done in the kitchen. You don't need 5 hours of cardio. I know that's extraordinary, but you can just lose or gain weight by eating more or less. Let me explain. So calories, this is how you lose or gain weight. That's all that matters, your caloric intake for gaining or losing weight. Now there are some really good apps to track this. FoodNoms is a great free app. They might have changed a bit since I used to use them. I would recommend doing that if you don't have any money. MacroFactor is the app I personally use. It is the best I've found for tracking all these types of foods. And your macros, fats, proteins, carbs, calories. So, you lose or gain weight based on one thing, your caloric intake. You can calculate this online using a calorie calculator. I'll probably put a little video on screen. The majority of what you burn is called your base metabolic rate or basal metabolic rate. This is done by things like your brain and you forcing it to fantasize about the things you fantasize about, and walking around, breathing, natural bodily functions. That's a lot of what you burn. Having more muscle, naturally, you just burn more by doing nothing as well. So, if you're in a caloric deficit, less calories than your maintenance, you'll lose weight. And if you're in a surplus, you're going to gain weight. So, how do you know which is right for you and how do you approach it to get the best results? Well, first off, if you're a teenager, so you're under 18, you haven't finished puberty, if you're anything except obese, don't cut down till you're shredded. Not, you're lean, you have nice abs, till you're shredded, competition ready. There's pressure from that for social media. If you know, like Alex Eubank, even that is too shredded at that point, because that's one of the only things related that can actually stop you growing. It can stunt your growth and it messes up your hormones badly. It will crash your test. You're not going to build muscle. It can have long-term effects on your hormonal system. You can get ED as a guy at 15. I know people that have. It's not a good idea. So leaning down to some decent abs is fine, but as a teenager, don't get shredded. Now, for everyone else and the teenagers, what I would personally recommend doing, especially if you're new to training for the first year of training, is to bulk up by eating at around a caloric surplus of 150 to 300. Now, keep in mind, if you do bulk or cut, especially bulking, don't do it for 6 months. Do it for a year, 2 years. Do it a long-term sustained thing. So the reason I suggest doing a bulk, especially 150 to 300 surplus, is because eating in a surplus of calories will allow your body to build muscle more easily. Keeping in mind, anything over 450 calories surplus per day is not going to help you build more muscle, it's just going to make you fat. So the reason for this is because when you provide your body with extra resources, like in the form of calories and protein, I'll talk about protein a bit later, it's going to say, hey, I've got all these resources. I'm going to build myself stronger now. So in the future, I'm going to be better equipped to survive. This is back when you were, a caveman. So this is really important because if you eat more now and you can actually bulk up, quote unquote, ideally building a lot of muscle and not putting on too much fat, it's going to allow you, when you do cut down and become lean, to actually have a lot of muscle underneath, to have some strength, to have some muscle to look good. So you actually look athletic and you look fit, instead of being me when I just cut down straight away and ended up looking really skinny even though I was training. And it is harder to build muscle in a deficit, significantly so. Now, when you do want to get leaner and cut down, maybe you've already been training for a little bit, maybe you've done your year of whatever, go in a deficit of 200 to 300 calories and eat in this deficit for 3 days and then at maintenance for 1 day and repeat this. Now, you're probably asking, why is this? When I eat in a bulk, I'm just constantly eating more. Now you're telling me to do this weird zigzag. Well, first of all, when you deprive your body of resources, similarly to how when you give it extra, it builds itself up, it's now going to break itself down. It's going to try and make itself as small as possible so that anything it doesn't absolutely need to survive, it offloads so that it uses less calories. Typically, this is going to be all the extra muscle you have that makes you look good. It's not needed for you to run around and survive. So, to help minimize this effect, you want to have a smaller deficit. Yes, it will take longer to lose the weight, but you're going to retain more muscle and lose more fat. And you want to cycle your calories. Doing this means that your body doesn't feel as pressured to shed itself down, as it's still getting enough calories in. It's still getting enough resources sometimes. And also doing this will offset something called metabolic damage. Sounds very scary. It is kind of bad. It's not permanent. What it is if you eat at a caloric deficit for a sustained period of time, pure deficit, your body's metabolism will slow down so it burns less. That obviously has ramifications for your performance, muscle building capabilities, everything else, but primarily it means you're no longer going to lose fat and you're still going to feel just as shitty. So this is why it's important to cycle them, because it's going to keep your metabolism, might even boost your metabolism, but it will keep your metabolism functioning at a high level so you don't have to eat significantly less to lose fat, and it sustains it for a long time. Plus, having some days where you eat more really helps you feel energized and sticks to a diet long term. Keeping in mind you could be cutting for 24 plus weeks, but doing it this way is proven that you will retain the most muscle, you'll lose the most fat, and overall you'll be the healthiest from it. Now you know about calories, you know how to get fat, get thin, get fit. Let's talk about protein, right? This is how you build big muscles. How much protein should you eat? Well, there are a million ways to calculate it, and I could go blah, 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 telling you about point whatever kilo body weight. Really doesn't it's not that specific. Your body can absorb 10 grams of protein an hour, right? If you eat a steak with 100 grams of protein in it, it'll just absorb it over the next 10 hours. But basically, you should aim to get 200 plus grams of high quality protein per day, right? Not 240 hours in a day. Getting 200 is enough. Now, high quality protein, what's that? Well, there's something called the Diaz score, where foods are rated based on their quality, the quality of their protein. So, if a food has a score of 100, it means your body uses 100% of that protein. Say your steak has 50 grams of protein, it's going to use all 50 if that score's at 100. Whereas if your body had a score of 70, the food had a score of 70, sorry, only 70% of that protein in that food is going to be used by your body. Say you have 100 grams with a score of 70, only 70 grams is actually usable protein. Now, for any vegans out there, this is bad news because it does happen that almost all the non-animal product foods are below 100 and all the animal product foods are above 100 on the Diaz score. So, now you know how much protein to eat and you know where to get it from. You might be thinking, well, when should I eat my protein? Is I eat it in one meal? Do I eat it every 5 minutes? What do I do? Well, the main thing to take into consideration, and the studies show this, the most important thing by far is just how much protein you get per day. So if you miss the anabolic window, you're not going to die, you're not going to lose all your muscle, you're going to be all right as long as you get enough protein throughout the whole day. Now, it is the most optimal to get protein in every 3 hours, but for me personally, I'm not pulling out a chicken drumstick in the middle of class to try and eat it. Or my rice, I want to eat my Rice Krispie for recess, whatever. So, what I found is the most maintainable approach for me is with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, my main meals, I always have a source of protein. And before or after my workout, I also have protein. That's important because the anabolic window isn't completely not a thing. It does help to just get muscle protein synthesis, or in, layman's terms, muscle building going as quickly as possible. And drink lots of water. Water's good. You continually up the weights, progressively overload, so you're always going to failure. You sleep enough and give your body enough time to recover. You give it the fuel and energy it needs to build muscle, and you'll grow. You'll grow stronger. You'll grow bigger. Everything's better. It's simple. It's not that complicated. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you want me to put the workout programs, just comment, and I'll make some up and just share them with you guys. I really don't care about charging you. It's just bullshit. I don't care. So I'll just make them for you, make some videos on them. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.